Cyprian Ivanov. How varied are the experiences in the TRs? Do Scientologists openly talk about how variable the supposedly uniform concepts are? A little bit. This is one of those things in Scientology which is hampered by Hubbard's introduction of this idea of verbal tech. Hubbard said you are not supposed to be explaining or talking about the technical aspects of Scientology with other Scientologists. You're supposed to read what it says. You're supposed to refer back to what it says in the written materials or in the lecture notes, like the transcripts. And that's what you're supposed to refer to if somebody has a question or needs clarification or doesn't understand something or they don't know about something. You're not supposed to just explain it to them. You're supposed to go get the book, open it up, and say, read this. And that way you cut down. The idea with this was not to be difficult. The idea with this was to cut down on the telephone game. The misduplication and change that occurs when people are explaining concepts of an important nature, of a very precise technical nature. And this is another one of those ways that Hubbard was able to get across to Scientologists that this is scientific, it's specific, it's detailed, and it's advanced. This knowledge, this sacred science of Scientology. So, therefore, you're not to explain it to one another because you'll get it wrong. You'll miss something, you'll leave something out, you'll add something, you'll screw it up. It's so much easier to just go get the book and show it. So that's verbal tech. And verbal tech can be a crime in Scientology. If they're found doing it over and over again, you'll get in a lot of trouble. So when you ask about, people openly talking about the variable experiences or concepts of the TRs, yeah, they don't do that. It's you refer to what it says. And Hubbard's description of the TRs is very, very simple, right? The purpose is to, be there, not do anything else but be there, for whatever length of time. So, what does that mean, to be there? Well, that's where you pop open your dictionaries and you're clearing up the word be and you're clearing up the word there and you're trying to figure it out. Is this Buddhist meditation where I'm supposed to sit quietly and not have any thoughts going through my head? And this was actually a problem I was having way back when I first joined staff. And I went down to training to Los Angeles to do the TRs as part of the classwork that I was doing down there. And I was just doing my nut trying to do this because I was trying to sit there and not think of anything for 2 hours. That is very hard to do, in case you were wondering. Well, my dad and mom came and visited me at one point, and they were pretty much already on the fence, although I didn't know that. They didn't even know it yet. But my dad listens to me. We go out to dinner. They took me out to dinner, and I was on full-time training down in LA, and so they had come to visit me, and they listen to me talking about this. I'm saying, yeah, I'm having all these troubles trying to get through the TRs, TR0. And my dad says, what are you doing? What are you talking about? You're trying to sit there and not think about anything. What? You can't do that. This isn't meditate. What? It's be there. Well, you're sitting in a chair. You're being there. What else is there? What else is there to it, right? So he was kind of giving me all this verbal tech, kind of explaining to me how it should be done. And he even went so far as to say, look, when I sit there and do TRs, I sit there and I run through all my problems in my head and go, oh yeah, I got to solve this, got to solve that, got to solve the other thing. And then when I'm all done with that, I realize, oh yeah, here I am. I'm still here. I'm being there, right? Very practical sort of, my body's there, so I'm there, right? Kind of thing. And I was making it out to be this big spiritual exercise. And my dad thought that was crazy. Now, is my dad right? Who knows, right? Who knows? Hubbard never said, sit there and don't think anything. But somehow I got that idea in my head. And maybe I got that idea in my head from some other person explaining to me what it meant. And this is one of those careful, crazy things in Scientology that people get mixed up in, where you have an idea of how this thing is. Let's say, for example, the TRs. Let's say let's say I'm sure, I'm not wondering, I'm sure that you should not be thinking any thoughts while you're doing TR0, while you're just sitting there either with your eyes closed or eyes open, You're sitting there staring at somebody else, or you're sitting in a chair for hours on end, and you're not supposed to think of anything. And I'm sure I'm right. That's what be there means. So if I sit down with another Scientologist who has some confusions about this, well, I will sit down with them, and I won't have to explain it to them, but they won't. If I clear up the word be and there with them in a dictionary, I'm going to make sure they come away thinking the same thing I'm thinking. Or I'm going to try to push them in that direction, you see. So that's kind of how the experience, or the ideas of how people experience these things differently go from one person to another to another. Because let's say I'm doing that. Let's say I'm word clearing. Let's say I'm sitting down across from this person who's got these questions, and I'm clearing up the words, and they're starting to say, oh yeah, okay, so I have to sit here and not think of anything. All right. And let's say the course room supervisor is standing there, and he hears this. And he has been supervising TRs for years, and he's heard everything people are going to say about this. And he's got his idea of what these words mean and what this is all about. And he says, what? What are you talking about? Let's say he says the same thing my dad does, right? What are you talking about? Where does it say in here that you don't have to think anything, that you don't have to think any thoughts? And the guy goes, well, it's just be there. And, you're just being there. What does be mean, right? And the soup goes, yeah, what does be mean? Because you don't get it if you think it means sit there with no thoughts. So then you could have another interpretation piled on this, but because it's from an authority figure, I will have to accept it, and this person will have to accept it, and we will sit there and re-clear these words so that we now are thinking about it the way he is demanding we think about this. So that's kind of how the propagation of people's varied experiences happens in Scientology, and I thought you would appreciate a little breakdown of how that all kind of happens.